and it is a massacre from the beginning of the heavy horses and the cavalry riding into them. And I was like, no, the horses are getting impaled.
The English horses, though.
But horses
deserved it. They deserved it. Not like the Scottish horses.
No. The English horses, like, look, they didn't know any better. They were doing what the riders were telling them to do. It's not their fault they were born in England.
Nah, I guess.
But like, also to the point, like, yeah, you had to take out the horses. Fair play.
Yeah.
But also horses.
What a shame.
What a shame. What's poppin', y'all? Welcome to Post Finale. I'm your host, Ankit Madhira. I'm an actor and a musician who hasn't seen a lot of films, so to make my friends happy and potentially provide a new perspective on some popular films, I am on a quest to change that. I'm not on this quest alone, however. This week, I am once again joined by actor, host of the Monday Mayhem podcast, and the owner of the Ross Hendry YouTube channel. It's Ross Hendry. Hi, Ross.
Hello. I've returned for another week of this podcast. I'm very excited.
Another week.
How are you today?
I'm good. It's been a whopping, 15 minutes since we last spoke. For listeners, it's been a week.
It was a week. Wow. How's that?
The magic of editing and, just recording 2 episodes on one day.
Come on. Efficiency. Get it.
Efficiency. Look, we're free on one day. We have one day off.
I know.
We record on one day.
I literally have. One day. That's so sad.
It happens. Wonderful. Well, Ross, I am very excited that you are back this week. We are continuing our discussion of Braveheart from where we left off last week. But before we get into that, I have a question for you. And it's not the same question as last week. It's different, and I purposely didn't tell you this. But you are an actor.
Yeah.
If you could play, and you were also of Scottish you were also Scottish, not even of Scottish descent. You just are Scottish. I don't know where I was going with that. Like, you're from Scotland. You are physically currently in Scotland.
Yes. It's right there out that window. It's looking at amazing. Scotland.
It's a mere 0 feet away.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
If you could play one character in this film not named William Wallace, who would you want to play? William Wallace is too easy. I can't give you that.
Stephen, if I could do an Irish accent, which I can't.
Fair enough. Hey, don't knock it until you try it. I've been working on my Scottish. It's not improved much, but it's slowly getting better. Every now and again, someone's like, that sounded Scottish, and I'm like, cool.
Yes. We're getting there.
Wonderful. So, and we will learn about Stephen this week. So, That's all we'll say about Stephen for now. From what I know of Stephen so far, fantastic choice.
Yes. Only one answer.
Just from what little I know, brilliant. So, where we left off, ladies and gentlemen, things have happened, things have transpired. William Wallace is now the leader of, I guess, rebels in Scotland. He's a menace to the English. That's kind of where we've left off. And we pick back up, and we are back with our king in England. And he has arrived at what looks like an archery competition of sorts. And he informs the prince and the others that the Scottish rebels have routed one of his garrisons. And ladies and gentlemen, if you listen to the end of the last episode, we finally figured out what it's called.
What? Is that what it is? Garrison?
It's a garrison.
Oh! There we go. That makes sense.
We got it.
Not a house.
It's not a house.
Oh.
It's not a very large house. I would like it to be a house.
Yeah.
But technically, it's a garrison.
There we are. There we go.
Yeah.
There we go.
The king out here ruining things. He's ruining Scotland. He's ruining our fun. What a king.
Yeah.
So.
Good on.
Yeah. So he informs everyone that they murdered the noble lord, and the prince has heard of the one that they call Wallace, and he's just a brigand and nothing more. Now, I didn't know what brigand meant, so no, it's okay. I looked it up
Oh,
because I
yes,
can look
go
up the
on.
definition of words without being spoiled of something.
Wow. Oh, that's
I can't
exciting.
look up most things about this film when I have a question, so I'm
There we
proud
go.
when I can look up what a word means.
Yeah, I could Google this.
I can Google this one. So, a brigand. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Vocabulary with Ankit. A brigand. One who lives by plunder, usually a member of a band. Synonyms
Oh,
include bandit
oh, it's
and
a bandit.
brigandade.
Ah, there you go.
So,
That makes
bandit.
sense.
It's just,
Yeah.
I guess, an old timey way of calling someone a bandit, maybe? I don't know when it was
Yeah.
necessarily used, but think of it as a bandit. That is what a brigand is.
Yep. Wow. There we go.
Okay,
Just
revert back to the podcast. We're done with vocabulary time. So,
listen. To...
lesson done. Back to the silliness. The king asks how he would deal with such a grievance, and the prince says, like any common thief, have the local magistrate arrest him and punish him accordingly. And the king does not seem satisfied with this answer, and he tells the others to leave them. So people exit, but not everybody? Why is it not everybody?
Ah, you see, we've got to keep the main characters in that room. You got to keep the. I
One
mean,
of them wasn't even a main character. One of them
ah,
was a friend.
yeah, yeah, him.
They don't
Ah,
listen to their king.
yeah, I know.
Yeah.
It's shocking,
Uh,
shocking that. Yeah,
Defiance within. Let's
I
go.
know. Yeah,
So the king then slaps the prince, who crumples. Prince is a wuss, can't take a slap. It's
yep,
not even like a punch. It's
no,
literally just a slap. Open palm, everything. And he
yeah,
just straight to the ground.
yep,
It's revealed by the king that he has killed the magistrate and taken control of the town. And he drags the prince up to his feet and says that in the morning he is departing for France to press their rights there, and he leaves the prince here to quell the rebellion. Asks if all of that is clear. And the prince is kind of like being held by the throat, kind of like this, slightly in a choking position, not really. For anyone that's listening on audio, I kind of did it with my hand, but obviously you can't see that. So that's kind of how he's being held. And the prince just kind of manages like a squeal of a yes of sorts. I found it very funny and I just laughed. The king tells him that one day you will be king, at least try and act like one. And then,
yeah,
the wife of this prince, the French wife, comes up trying to look at him and comfort him. The prince just yells, "Get away from me," and convene my military council, and he storms off. The
yeah.
princess's maid comes up to console the wife and tells her she hopes that the prince goes to Scotland and meets Wallace, then she will be a widow. Oh,
Ah,
ah,
no.
fair, but didn't expect that to be coming out of the maid's
Yeah,
mouth right then.
yeah. You see.
But
And that's the.
important thing that I picked up right there, this isn't really her maid, it's her best friend
Yeah,
and confidant.
yep,
Like, she knows everything in the princess's life, and the princess knows everything about her life.
yep. Yeah, it's one of these, and I think that as well about the sort of the prince being a bit, sort of useless almost, and a bit like that. That's actually true, and that was the whole like Edward the Second. It was Edward the First, at the king in this. Like he was clever. He was sort of battle tactics and things. Edward the Second wasn't as efficient as he was. And this was ID. He wasn't quite as tough. He wasn't quite as sort of battle tactics. He didn't have experience there and things. So that's sort of that. That is that idea of the prince being a bit, sort of scared and a bit, kind of useless and not like that. That is, that's actually sort of half true. But yeah.
Right. Is Edward II famous for anything?
He was the, I think he was Edward II was the king that was defeated properly, sort of by the Scots later on, right? Later on, he's the king that Robert the Bruce obliterated in a big battle, right? And that was it. That was it. So he was the one when Edward the First sort of, once he got older, once Edward II took over, the English and the battles weren't quite as tactically as good as they were sort of
I
when
mean,
Edward
based on
the
what we
First
see
was.
later in this episode, the battle tactics ain't good here either. So, like, at
No,
all. But then again, we'll see who sends them. So,
yeah,
I was like, oh, damn, that's a choice. We're back up in Scotland. And the English are burning towns, killing women and children. And they spot some of Wallace's soldiers and they give chase. And they run to a cliff and the soldiers have nowhere to escape. And I was like, a trap. And the main English soldier says there's no point in resisting. You are outnumbered and trapped. Where is Wallace? And I was just like, he's behind you, isn't he? Because we see in like the entire Scottish rebel army, like Wallace's clan, kind of like, come up over the ridgeline, and we can see it. And then William throws a rock, hits him in the head, and just waves. He's just like, hello.
they've surrounded them all up in it. Yeah, that's great.
just a beautiful, cheeky, like, hi.
Hello,
What's up? I heard you were looking for me.
found you. You found us. Well done.
It's like, you completed your mission.
Yeah.
Sad
Now
that
what?
you won't get to deliver a message saying that you completed your mission, but you can have the satisfaction that you have completed your mission.
Yeah. Well done. You're fast. Now you're getting it.
Right.
That's it.
So we're now at a meeting of some sort, and someone is meeting someone behind a curtain. For the time being, they're going to be called young man and old man, because I don't know their names for a
Oh,
while.
that's okay. That's okay. I wouldn't say. I wouldn't say who they are.
So the young man says that William Wallace has begun a rebellion. And the old man behind the curtain says, okay, we should embrace the rebellion, support it from our lands in the north. These people sound English. So I was like, okay, do they secretly oppose the king? Is this a way to like overthrow them? It sounded like an English accent. I'm not sure if it was, because maybe it's like on the border somewhere and like, I don't know, there's like a weird mix, but they sounded English.
Yeah. It's
So
yeah. It's a very
this is what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
I appreciate you not necessarily being able to say anything. So
I've been quiet.
Thank you. So the old man says they will gain the English favor by condemning it and order it to be opposed from the lands of the south. And I was like, ooh, very smart from this old man to play both sides, but also very risky. Because if it's found out, both sides will hate them. So we don't know exactly what's going on. And I'm like, who are these people? So the old man tells the young one, he's like, sit, stay a while, like, rest. Young man informs that Wallace doesn't have a knighthood, but he fights with passion. He inspires people. He gets them to do kind of, what is needed. And the old man says that you wish to charge off and fight as he did. And he's just like, so do I. I wish that I could do that. And the young man is like, it is time. It is time to do it now. And the old man says that it's time to survive. And we learn that the young man is the 17th Robert Bruce, who you have alluded to many times. I'm still slightly confused on who he is, but I'm guessing he's a big character in terms of Scottish independence.
Oh, yes.
Cool.
He is indeed.
Because legitimately, like before talking to you, right in my notes, my next comment is, "Why is this important? Who is he?"
Well, so he is. So Robert the Bruce sort of was the king of Scotland. That's who he sort of was. And his dad, the older man, was also called Robert the Bruce, right? So they were like called. It was like Robert the Second, Robert the Bruce, whatever. And they were sort of around, but it was more like after William Wallace and things is when Robert Bruce kind of takes over, uh, the next sort of part of the Scottish wars. Really, it's like it kind of he sort of he comes in sort of afterwards. It's about the same time, but it's once it's sort of yeah. So he was
So
sort
they
of he
overlap a little bit.
yeah they were. I don't think they ever sort of really met or anything, but I think it was after sort of after William Wallace. It was a few years later, I think, and then this is when sort of all the big battles that Robert the Bruce was in charge of. These are the like it was the set after way after this film, and these are the ones that Scotland eventually won a very big one, and yeah, and that was so it's kind of the early days of him essentially, and then he sort of
Okay.
takes yeah
So William Wallace and Robert the Bruce, this Robert the Bruce that we meet in the film, in
yeah
history, from your understanding, they did exist at the same time, but there's no
kind of
like
yeah.
recorded event of them meeting per
I don't
se.
think so. I don't think
Okay,
so. It would have
sure,
been. It was
but
like
like
William
the
Wallace. Then he took over sort of shortly afterwards.
right, right,
Robert the
but they
Bruce.
were
Yeah,
living at the same time. Cool.
yeah, they did.
Um, so I'm guessing this is one of those things where it's like, okay, the film added it, but there's no historical like, yeah, this is what
Yeah,
Robert the Bruce did.
yeah, yeah. It's a
Okay,
wee bit.
cool.
Yeah, a wee bit.
Cool, cool. I'm fine with it. Like, fine. So the old man is just like the 16 before you passed you land and title because they didn't charge in, and I was like, oh, yeah, fair enough. Like, makes a valid point. The old man tells Robert to call a meeting of the nobles. And Robert's just like, all they do is talk. And the old man is just like, rightly so. They are rich in English titles and lands as they are in Scottish, just as we are. And he's like, you admire William Wallace. He is uncompromising, and men are easy to admire. Like, uncompromising men are easy to admire. He has courage, but so does a dog. But it is exactly the ability to compromise that makes a man noble. Interesting. Because based on what Argyle had taught him, you would think that Wallace is able to compromise
Hmm.
based on the teachings that we assume that Argyle had. But maybe he lost that ability when they just, took away the love of his life for no reason.
Yeah, yeah. I think he's just driven by sort of vengeance almost. It's like he's doing everything
Yeah,
for her. It's
it kind of just became, okay, get me as much English blood as possible.
yeah. So, and just free sort of Scotland essentially. So I think that's the sort of send them
Pretty much.
so it doesn't happen to anybody else sort of and
Right.
kind of yeah. So I think that's
So
kind of
the old man continues and says that to understand this, Edward Longshanks is the most ruthless king ever to sit on the English throne. None of us, nothing of Scotland will remain unless we are as ruthless. Give ear to the nobles. Knowing their mind is the key to the throne. Old man, very intelligent. I'm sure we'll see more of them later. But for now, we're back with Wallace and the rebels. Woohoo! They are pillaging, they are plundering the Garricks. They're having some fun. English blood. Woohoo! So,
yes.
meanwhile,
Freedom.
freedom. Meanwhile, the prince is dressed in fancy clothes and he is worried about them. And I was like, I will say, costumes on point. Well done. So the queen and her maid slash best friend. I'm just going to call her the maid, but she's really the best friend. So, not the queen, the princess. The princess and the maid are, behind. And the maid says that when the king returns, he will bury him in the new clothes, hopefully because Scotland is in chaos. The maid reveals that the prince is secretly sending an army up north. She knows this because last night she slept with a member of the war council, and the princess says that he shouldn't be discussing this stuff in bed. And the maid just cheekily goes, well, Englishmen don't know what the tongue is for.
Ha ha ha!
Innuendos!
Get it! That's it.
Ladies and gentlemen, when the princess and the maid are speaking, the whole conversation is happening in French. I do not know any French. I will not be attempting any of the French. I'm giving you what the subtitles are telling me. So,
Yeah.
I am sorry to disappoint. French is not one of the languages that I ever tried to learn. So, I know oui oui, I know baguette, and bonjour.
Yeah, I don't even know them.
Yeah, this is my level of French. The French are very nice people, from what I have understood. Most of the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, sure. So the princess asks if Wallace fights to free women, and the maid says that a magistrate wanted to catch him because he had a secret lover, and he cut the throat to get him to fight, and he did. And knowing his passion for lost love, they planned on desecrating the graves of his father and brother and setting ambush at a grave of Murren. But Wallace fought through the trap, and he carried her body to a safe, secret place. The maid says that is love, isn't it? And the princess just goes, love, I wouldn't know. Oh,
Oh,
I feel
what a
so
shame.
bad.
That is sad. That is what a poor princess. It's just shocking, isn't it? Why is he like that?
I don't know. I mean, like,
It's just
we know why. I mean, it
yeah.
is, I guess, implied earlier in the film, and I don't know how much this is implied in history, that Edward II was gay. And
Yeah.
at that time, it was very frowned upon to be gay.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's yep. So it's just all that, and it's amazing. I'm not sure how true that storyline is. Maybe it is. Maybe it's. I'm not. But yeah,
Maybe. I
it's
mean,
always
to my understanding, even in history, it's never explicitly said that he
yeah.
was or anything like that. Like, to my
Hmm.
understanding, it's just what the film said is that it was widely rumored that, he wasn't into this girl at all.
Yeah. It's just
So
yep. It's one of these
I,
things.
I
One of
feel for
these
this.
things.
I feel for this princess.
Yeah.
I feel like she is going to somehow get in contact with William. Somehow, kind of, I guess, like, want to have an affair with William, but maybe William gets caught before anything can, like, blossom.
Mm.
But the
Yeah.
way that the way that these two are talking, it makes me think that something is going to happen between the princess and William. It might not get to a physical level, but I think the princess will at least want to help. And maybe that's why, later in history, like, she has more sympathy because she's like, well, I don't really care for my husband, so, like, I don't care if he loses, kind of deal.
Yeah.
And so maybe, I don't know. I don't know that part of history. I appreciate that you
Hmm.
can't say much on that part of history because it might ruin the film. So
I'm
let's
saying
move on.
nothing. I'm trying not to say
I
it.
appreciate it. So, meanwhile, Will and his team are having a meal, and William says that eventually Longshanks will send the whole Northern army against them. Heavy cavalry, armored horses, all of that. Argyle used to talk. about how no army ever stood up to the heavy horses. Hamish's father says that they will have to hit, run, hide the Highland way. And William looks up and sees the tall trees. I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, for occasionally calling him Will. I write Will in my notes so that it's faster, and I sometimes forget that I need to say William. So, my bad. But William looks up and he sees the tall trees, and he says that they will make long spears, hundreds of them, 2 times as long as any man. And some more volunteers have arrived. And I'm like, all right, these spears are going to show up. I'm curious on how they're going to show up. So the volunteers arrive, and the man says that they have come to fight and die for him. And William tells him to stand up because he is not the Pope. Fantastic. And this is when we meet Fodrin. And he's been given a name, and I was like, okay, that makes me feel like he is going to be important at some point in the film. Yeah. He's going to have a role. So Fodrin brought something his wife made. It looks like some type of cloth of something. Yeah. I'm not completely sure on what it is. We don't get a clear shot of it. Yeah. Someone else comes in and laughs, saying that, is this William Wallace? I look prettier than William. He looks to this guy and says, all right, father, I'll ask him. If I fight for you, will I get a chance to kill any Englishmen? Hamish asks if his father is a ghost or if the man converses with the Almighty. And the Irishman says that he must convene with the Almighty and says to just answer the question. Hamish's father calls him an insane Irish, and the Irishman draws a blade, but there are about then 5 drawn onto him. And he just goes, smart enough to get a dagger past your guards, old man. And William says, this old man is my friend. And William says, yes, if you fight for me, you get to kill the English. And the response here, incredible. Excellent. Stephen is my name, most wanted man on my island, except I'm not on my island, of course. More's the pity. Fantastic. I love this guy immediately. Yeah, I understand why you would want to play him.
He's great. He's funny. He's what they. So we don't. All the characters are funny, but you need that. He's just you get the feeling he is. He's a criminal on his island. It's just it's mine. it's just great. It's just a great wee character. It's hilarious.
Yeah. I love that Hamish is like, Ireland. It's your island, and he's like, well, yeah, but we're not there.
He's great. And he's hilarious.
I came to the slightly bigger island, which we have issues with. But I don't know. I wanted to kill some Englishmen. I heard you were killing Englishmen, and I'm wanted over there. So I figured here is better than over there, so I don't get thrown in jail.
Yeah, he's crazy. But you kind of get the feel it's like, why is he not allowed on Ireland? What did he do?
I am very curious. I wonder if it gets answered. I don't know.
So you just get this vibe that he must be. He's a really nice, funny guy, but he must be a mean, tough as anything as well. Sort of crazy guy, and it's just like that's what we need. That's what they need on their.
That's what they need.
Their side.
They need that. Hamish calls him a madman. Stephen laughs and says that he's come to fight and he's come to the right place. So William is off hunting with the bow and arrow. Stephen is there as well, and they're trying to get close to a deer. Will notches the arrow, but Stephen runs out from behind the trees with a sword raised like he is about to kill Stephen. William turns to take aim at Stephen, but he doesn't see a man that is behind him about to strike him down. Stephen throws his sword like a throwing knife and takes the man out before he is able to kill William. Now, Stephen asks if he isn't sure the Almighty sent him to watch Stephen's back. And then he says, I didn't like him anyway. Wasn't right in the head. Are we supposed to know who the person was that tried to kill William? Because he looked familiar.
That was the guy that Fodrin, is that his name? The guy that gave him the wife, the gift that his wife made for William Wallace.
It was him.
So it was like
Oh,
it was the two that arrived, and it was the sort of he was the first one that before Stephen that gave him the gift or something. And then I just like that whole thing that was like he seems like the not the trustworthy one, and Stephen's the one that's a bit quite eccentric and a bit pulled the knife out on the and you're a bit like, and then that whole thing, it's as if that he's going to sort of assassinate sort of William, and you think you see him running out, but then actually then you see the other guy, and he's actually running out to protect William, and you don't realize that and I think that's just a great scene. All of a
it's a
sudden, it's like, oh,
fantastic scene. I
oh,
just didn't,
he's trustworthy.
for some
Yeah,
reason, I didn't clock that, it's the same person.
yeah. It was the one that seemed quite average and kind of the one that, oh yeah, I've made you this. One of them was like, oh, I'll give you a gift, and the other one pulled a knife out on one of his best friends, and it's the other
I'd,
guy
I'd,
that's the
I'd
yeah
honestly probably trust the guy that was like willing to take a risk
yeah
of like, yeah, that's probably what we need.
yeah, and that was
the,
it. So it's cool.
it's just a healthy amount of insanity.
Yeah, exactly. It's what you need in a fight. I think is what you. He's
Look,
eccentric and he's a bit mad,
it's
but
it, it's
he's
it's just
loyal.
like an
Yeah.
Avatar: The Last Airbender, right? I'm assuming you've seen it. Um.
No,
Oh,
I
my
haven't. I'm
friend.
sorry.
Oh,
No, I'm really sorry.
oh.
I'm
Um.
sorry. I'm sorry,
Never
everyone.
mind. Just
Never
we'll
watched.
just skip over. We'll
Never
just
watched
skip
it
over
ever.
that. Um. My recommendation, if you are gonna watch it, watch the original cartoon. You don't need to watch any of the live actions.
Oh, the Netflix
Ladies
one.
and gentlemen, if you want to see what we thought of the live action Netflix series, shameless plug, we're talking about it right now as these episodes are coming out over on Flip the Scripts. So like go check out that podcast. It's on the same YouTube channel if you're watching on YouTube. So yeah. Um anyway, so the men see some runners come up, and they come back with the news that the English army is advancing towards Stirling. Robert the Bruce and most others will not commit to battle, but word has spread and Highlanders are coming down in droves, hundreds and thousands. Now, before we get to Stirling, we're going to take a quick intermission and then we will be right back. Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for listening to this episode of Post Finale. I hope you are all enjoying this episode, and if you want to gain access to more bonus content, like access to my notes and access to some of the tier lists that I make and help suggest films and things like that, all of that can be done over at our Patreon, and that can be found at patreon.com/coopforge. So that's patreon.com/co_OPFORGE. Signing up for any of the tiers gets you different types of bonus content depending on the tier that you sign up for, and a shout out here on the show for every patron that signs up. It really means the world to us, and it helps us grow this show and helps us be able to put the money back into this show to make it a better experience for you, the listeners. That is our entire goal here at Co-op Forge. So thank you all so much if you are considering doing this. Now, if you want to help the show in a non-monetary way, that is fantastic as well. You can do so by just talking about us and sharing it with a friend. Just reach out to a friend and be like, hey, you love movies, or hey, you need an excuse to watch more movies. Check out this show called Post Finale. The host is silly, he's an actor, he's confused most of the time, gets a lot of guesses wrong, but overall it's a lovely time and some interesting discussions about some iconic films. I think you'll really enjoy it. It really does help. And be sure to talk about us on social media and follow us on social media. That really helps out a lot as well. If you're looking for the show, you can find us on Instagram and Facebook at Post Finale Pod. And then you can also find us at Co-op Forge on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And that's at Co-op Forge at CO_OPFORGE. And we post content not just from Post Finale, but from the other shows here on Co-op Forge as well. So that includes Flip the Scripts and that includes Seattle Across the Pond. So be sure follow both of those channels. Again, it's at Post Finale Pod and at Co-op Forge, CO_OPFORGE. But just thank you so much for listening to this episode. Wherever you are, if you're enjoying the episode, if you're listening on YouTube, please please hit subscribe. It really does help us out. If you're listening on a podcast app, that's great as well. It doesn't matter to us where you're listening. We're just so thankful that you're listening. But if you're listening on a podcast app, please leave a rating. It really does help us out. Please leave a review and hit that follow button. You can also turn on notifications both on YouTube and on the podcast apps just to be notified when new episodes come out. It really does mean a lot that you are all listening to these episodes, and thank you all so much. So let's get back to the episode without further ado. And we're back. So it now says we see like a guy running on the field, and it says Sterling. And I'm like, let me guess. Our first big battle of the film. We're about a little over an hour. We're at like an hour and 15. It feels like it's time for a big battle. Let's go. So we see the single rider. He comes back and says that they are outnumbered at least 3-1. 300 horses, maybe more. The elders are saying that they must try and negotiate. They try to figure out who is in command, and we pan down the line of the soldiers, and we see two of them discussing that they can't tell what they're talking about, the nobles over there, but the nobles are going to negotiate, and they do a deal, they go home. If not, we charge. And they say with 300 heavy horsemen, we have no chance. And we see the English troops start to come over the hill, and they are completely outnumbered. And as we alluded to in the last episode, damn, that's a lot of extras.
Yeah, it is. Yes, there's a lot of people on that screen there. And it's
Lots
just
of people.
Yeah, and this is one of I think one of the most iconic battle scenes in any film, cinema ever. This one, I think.
It is.
Yeah.
It
It's
is a
just-
scene.
Yeah.
That I will say.
Yeah.
It is. Oh boy, it is a thing. So
Yeah.
the two who were talking earlier, the two soldiers, are just like, yeah, I don't want to die to them. So they say, I'm not dying for these bastards. Let's go home. And the Scottish troops start to disband. And I was like, oh, well, this is disappointing. But also, I was like, oh, William's not here yet. He's going to show up and rally them together, isn't he? Cool. All right. I see how this is going to go. Like, we can't not have a battle. We're gearing up. You got this many extras together. You're not just going to get this many extras together for nothing. Although it would be hilarious if you got this many extras together and then just they struck a deal and they were like, all right, everyone, we can go home now.
Bye.
The plot twist no one saw coming.
Yeah, I know. They all just went home. They all just back to their farms, back to their hamlets. The end.
Yeah. And they all lived happily ever after. The end.
Yes. But
Surprise! The rest of the film, just credits.
yeah,
The other hour and 45 of this film, credits.
yeah,
We take a minute to dedicate to every single person that was on that film set.
yes. Every
That's why
single
this film
extra.
is this long.
Every camera person, every it's just
Every
great.
extra. Well,
Yes.
okay, the extras we give 10 seconds each.
Yeah.
Still plenty
I
of
know.
time.
Yeah,
Still plenty of
absolutely.
time.
Get your
But,
name
you
up
know,
there. Yeah.
For a whole
absolutely.
10 seconds in a feature film, let's go. No,
I'll
that's
take
not what
it.
happens. So, fair. The nobles see that they are leaving, and one goes and tries to tell them to stop, do not flee, wait until we have negotiated. It doesn't work. He's not very convincing. And then we see William and his men riding up, adorning the famous blue war paint that I have seen in theatrical posters and many, many places. And it wasn't until they rode up that I was like, oh, it's from this film. I should have known it's from this film. I've seen this face before.
Yes.
I'm dumb.
This is it. This is the moment of this film. This is like the iconic bit. This whole scene when he comes up in that blue paint. These next 5 minutes. It's just like you go to anybody, they've probably seen that, or they know they could quote this scene. Even if they've never seen the film. And it's just one of these things. Super, super famous. And as I said in the last one as well, it's like if you go to any football game or like rugby game in Scotland, and the amount of fans that are wearing the blue paint, that wear it as part of the display. It's just if you go to Scotland, it's like part of the culture almost now, that blue war paint.
Is that blue war paint like something previously, or did that just become
I don't
a big
know.
part of the culture after this film?
Just really after the film is when it really
Okay.
sort of, it was just huge.
Fair.
Yeah.
There we go. Well done to the film. You created a cultural phenomenon.
Yes.
Good for you. Good for you,
Absolutely.
film. An entire
Absolutely.
nation thanks you. So
Yes.
they arrive and they see the English forces. Oh, look. And William and his friends ride up and everyone starts looking over them and gawking at them. And they don't fully believe that it's William Wallace, but they're like, wait, it may be him. Let's stick around. Like, let's find out. Like, it might be him. Nobody move. So Stephen says, the Almighty says that this will be a fashionable fight. It's drawn the finest people. And the nobleman asks where their salute is. And I was like, what does that mean? Like, who their leader is? Or are they like supposed to like salute the nobles? Like,
Yeah. The imagined leader, I'm not sure. Not too sure. I'd assume leader. Or
okay,
whatever.
we'll go with
I'm not too
leader.
sure. Yeah, I'm
If
not
we're
too sure.
wrong, let us know in the comments, ladies and gentlemen. I
Yeah.
would love to be proven wrong. It would be fantastic.
Yes.
So William thanks them for presenting themselves on the battlefield, and the nobleman is just like, it's my army to join, like, it's my army to join it. You have to give homage. And I'm just like, yeah, it might be your army, I say in air quotes for the audio listeners, but you have no command. William hasn't spoken yet to the people, and there's already more command. They saw his face and stopped moving because
Yeah.
they're like, wait, this guy might have something important to say.
Yeah. Scottish hero. So he's already. Just
Yeah.
him being there is enough that they would even recognise him. It's like William Wallace, no, not can he be? Not tall enough, He's
Not
it's
tall
like
enough.
his legend has spread across sort of Scotland. Oh, there's this William
Oh,
Wallace
it's
guy.
fantastic.
Yeah, it's great.
So William says that he gives homage to Scotland, and if this is your army, why does it go? Fair point. A soldier says that they didn't come to fight for them, and other soldiers agree. They're like, home, the English are too many. And William calls out, he's like, sons of Scotland, I am William Wallace. And then we hear, the soldiers pipe in, and they're like, William Wallace is 7 feet tall.
Tall. I love this scene.
Oh,
This
do you
is
know
the-
this scene by heart? Do you want to do it?
Oh, I did a while ago. I don't know if I could do it now.
Oh, fair.
Aye, William Wallace is 7 feet tall. Aye, he shoots. Aye, and he consumes the English with fireballs from his eyes and balls
Oh,
of
hold on.
lightning from his-
I'll send you the notes because I have it. I'll send it to you in the chat, and then we'll have a proper Scotsman say it instead of me in a very
Do you want me to
bad
say
Scottish
it?
accent.
I don't know. How can I get it up? Does it just come on? Is it just this wee?
Just
Oh,
at
I
the bottom,
see
you
it.
should
Right,
see
I
chat.
see. Yeah, got it. Okay. Oh, cool. Very cool. Oh, yes.
There you go.
There you go. He kills men by the hundreds, and if he were here, he'd consume the English with fireballs from his eyes and bolts of lightning from his arse. Ha 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 ha! I am William Wallace, and I see a whole army of my countrymen, here in defiance of tyranny. You have come to fight as free men, and free men you are. What will you do with that freedom? Will you fight? No, no, no. What?
No, fight against
No.
that. No, we will run. We will all live. Wait, I didn't send you the
Aye.
rest. Hold on.
Fight and
I
you. I
forgot to
can do
send you
it.
the second part.
I, I can do this. Fight and you may die. Run and you'll live for at least a while. And many years from now, and dying in your beds, many years from now, will you be willing to trade all the days from this day to that in exchange for one chance, just one chance, to come back here and tell our enemy that they may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom! That's it.
Ah! Fantastic.
Come on.
Fantastic.
I,
Well
I knew
done.
it. It's fire Scotland. We all know that speech.
No, it's just a fair. I have heard that speech.
Yes.
Again, probably should have put together it was from this film.
Yes, I would argue that that is the most iconic battle speech in any film ever. I think everyone knows freedom. Everybody knows that, but it's like it's just a
Right.
great.
So this is my question, and it's not really much of a spoiler, so you can answer this one.
Okay.
Is this the only time, because I know of like the thing where it's like, like William Wallace and Braveheart shouting freedom.
Yeah.
Is this the only time? Is this the moment that they're referring to, or is there a later moment that they're referring to?
Both. There is another moment.
Beautiful.
There is another.
Lovely.
There's two.
Yeah, like that's why I was like, I know that this exists, so I just don't know if it's like this moment or like is there another moment that they're also
Yeah.
referring to that we'll get to. Cool, lovely.
Yeah.
Like I said, not really a spoiler because I know that it exists.
Yeah.
I don't know where it exists. We'll find out.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, incredible speech.
Yeah.
Incredibly delivered, fantastic delivery by both Ross here on this podcast
Not quite as good as.
and Mel Gibson. I guess Mel Gibson did okay, but like
Yeah.
I prefer your version personally. So
Get it. The craziest thing about this whole film is that Mel Gibson, he directed it as well. He was the director.
I didn't know that.
Mel Gibson was like you see the behind the scenes things, like he was doing that battle speech on the horse, and then he had a quad bike and he was going round in between the filming, and he was directing the battle, all the extras where to stand and things, and making sure everything was there, and then he'd come back and then do
That's fantastic.
So he directed it as well.
I also do know one fun fact about that. I don't remember why. I don't know. Maybe somewhere, again, like this film is talked about a lot. So at some point I heard something along the lines that the studio wouldn't sign off on the film and fund the film unless Mel Gibson played William Wallace, but Mel Gibson didn't originally want to play William Wallace because he felt that he might not be the best person to portray that role.
Yeah, I think he was brought in to direct it, I think, originally, or whatever.
I'm pretty sure he wrote it. He might have been a writer. I don't know
Maybe,
if he was a
yeah.
writer.
I think
I think he was the writer and director, or at least one of the writers. And
Yeah.
I know that like originally he was the director, but if I remember right, like the reason he didn't want to was because he thought he would be too old.
Yeah, or something.
Because something like that. Like, but like I do know that like he didn't want to play William Wallace, but then the studio wouldn't sign off on the film unless he was playing William Wallace, and he really wanted to direct it, so he was like, "Fine, I guess I'll do it."
Fine, I'll play him as well. So I think it's just one of these things that he's the main star of it, but then as well, he every shot, every decision, it was him as well. He was in the editing room. He was in making sure it was just that sort of he's
This
a
film
great
is truly his baby.
yeah, he's a great actor, but he's an even better director, I think. Sort of Mel Gibson. He's sort of both, and it's just just all these, just that whole scene that he did the speech, he did the lines, but he directed it as well. This whole he
Yeah,
organized the whole everything. It was him, so it's just great.
wild. Speaking of the direction, we're on the English side, and we have a fun little character, and he's like the leader, I guess. Like we'll call him, I don't know, the corporal. I'm confused on who he is,
Yeah, I'm not
but
sure.
like
Yeah,
he's the leader of the English army that's on the other side, and he's just like, oh, they seem quite optimistic to me. Maybe they do want to fight. And then the right hand says, confrontation might be a foregone conclusion, my lord. But nonetheless, he believes that, we should deliver the king's terms. And I was like, well, at least they're following protocol. Cool. So they head out to talk about the terms, and William goes and joins them, but he tells Hamish, he's like, I'm going to go pick a fight. I'm like,
my favorite line in it. Go pick a
I'm
fight.
like, William doesn't plan on agreeing to the terms. These are the
Yeah,
king's terms: lead the army off the field. He will give each of the nobles an estate in Yorkshire, including a hereditary title, which will from which you will pay an annual duty. The entire time he is trying to give these terms, William is circling him on his horse, and the knight's horse is getting like all agitated and stuff. It's like, I don't like this. And William cuts him off and says that I have an offer for you. Lower your flags and march straight back to England, stomping at every home you pass by to beg for forgiveness for 100 years of rape, theft, and murder. Do that, and your men shall live. Do it not, and every one of them will die today.
I'm sure he says that as well to one of the other English. I'm sure he says that to the when they burn the garrison down, and like after Murrin sort of death, there's a scene where they dress up as the English sort of soldiers and sneak in
Oh,
to the
yeah, yeah, yeah.
garrison. I'm sure he says the same thing there, I think, or it's very
He says
close. It's like he
something.
repeats it.
He says something very similar.
Yeah. So it's just
Yeah,
it's,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
just this kind of I like that. I like that.
So Chilton laughs and says, you are outmatched. There's no heavy cavalry, and in 2 centuries, no army has won. And William interrupts him again, going, I am not finished. Before we let you leave, your commander must cross the field, present himself before this army, put his ass between his legs, and kiss his own ass. And the Scottish lords just look very uncomfortable throughout all of this. And the English turn and head back, and one of the Scottish noblemen is just like, I think that was less cordial than what he is used to. And I was like, you think? And William tells them to be ready and do exactly as he says. On his signal, ride around behind our position and flank them. Do it and let the English see you do it. And then one of the noblemen realizes, they'll think that we've run away. And William nods, confirming. And then he says, circle around and take out the archers. I'll meet you in the middle. The nobles agree, and we get ready for battle. Now, this is one thing. I feel like battle back then was pretty easy to potentially like outmaneuver people.
Yeah, and this is one of the things that this is the if you're a history buff and you're going into this this is the Battle of Stirling Bridge that this is, which was a real battle that happened, that William Wallace led, and there is no bridge in this scene, right? And there is so originally, so this scene is again true. Yes, that they did have a battle, and the Scots, they did win it, but it was, I think, in history they did outmaneuver the English. That was kind of what they did, and it wasn't the flanking thing or the pretending, to surrender and run away. I'm sure that they hid away in the trees up a hill or something originally, and they waited for all the English to go across the bridge, Stirling Bridge, and they waited for the army, and then they came out of nowhere when they were on the bridge, and they were trapped essentially, And then that's how they took the bridge down or something. They cut the or something, but I'm sure they so it is true. It's like what it, they won. They did have this battle. They were outnumbered, and they did tactically win the battle. But in the real, I'm sure the real version, it was they cornered them. They hid sort of in the trees or whatever, and then they came out when they were going across this little bridge, and they trapped them sort of on the bridge, and that's how they were able to sort of, they outsmarted them that way. So this is one of the things. But again, I think even just filming and things like that, I think it would be as much as aesthetic and things to film it on a big battlefield, the classic,
I mean, yeah,
big battle.
I
I did like
understand
that.
why they've changed it.
Yeah,
I think it would have been very cool to see the tactics on the bridge and how they did
yeah,
that. Like, you could still do that, kind of
yeah,
more of as an ambush.
yeah.
But I think, they've shown ambushes already in the film.
Yeah,
So this is a way to, show like, all right, like big battle. Like, let's go.
yeah.
So
Let's have the classic. Yeah.
yeah, again, it might not be completely historically accurate, but like, cool.
It's
So
not trying to be.
it's not trying to be.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
based on history.
Yes. It's
So
that's the thing.
William sends his horse, and the priest starts to bless them. And in my head canon, I'm like, great. The priest, after he blesses both sides, the priests go and join the scribes that are sitting there writing down what happens, as we discussed in the last
Oh
episode.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So the priests and the scribes, friends. Everybody else, enemies.
Yeah.
So the commander wants Wallace's heart on a plate, and I'm like, you may get it, but you might not be living, because there's still about an hour and a half left of the movie, and I'm pretty sure the English are going to lose this battle, and the legend of William Wallace is going to grow.
Yeah.
So the commander orders the archers to move forward. Everybody is ready, but nobody moves yet. William screams, and the Scottish get ramped up, and then they start chanting, and they flash the English army by lifting up their kilts.
Yeah.
Sure, why
Yes.
not?
Yep.
The English archers fire some arrows, and they start to connect, and they use the shields. The Scots use their shields to block the arrows. Some of them do connect, and, most of them miss, though. And Stephen, just under the shield, just goes, the Lord tells me he can get me out of this mess, but he's pretty sure you're perfect. No nuts. So the Scottish get back up, and they start mooning the English army. And for anyone that is unfamiliar with the term, they are showing them their arse. So here comes another set of arrows, and I feel really bad for the guy who got shot in the.
Yeah, I know. I was waiting for that because so I was
I was like,
rewatched it
that
for
poor
this.
extra. I don't know
I
what
know.
happened, but like that poor extra.
Yeah.
I hope
Just
he got
tragic.
paid a little bit more.
Yeah, that'll be
Yeah.
a bit
Yeah.
equity or something. He's got to step in there. Something.
Yeah. Look, they're just like, look, you need an extra? Sure. You need an extra to get shot? Sure. You need an extra to get shot in the ass? That's gonna cost you a bit more. Like, there are levels.
I want 50. I want £50 now. For this.
I mean, in 1995, £50 was actually a decent amount of money.
Yeah, not too bad, I'd take it.
Yeah. I mean, I'd take it now, but like, back then, even better. So
Yeah.
the commander says, send the horse. And, before that, William gives the signal to the other Scottish nobles to, head out. And so the commander sees that every Scot with a horse is fleeing. Wonderful. The plan is working. The commander says to send the horse full attack, and the cavalry advances. The Scots don't move yet. The Scots wait until the cavalry is almost right on top of them, and then they switch to holding those really long spears that William mentioned earlier in the film that they should make. And I was like, oh, this is where it's gonna come out. and it is a massacre from the beginning of the heavy horses and the cavalry riding into them. And I was like, no, the horses are getting impaled.
The English
Like,
horses, though, not
but horses.
deserved it. They deserved it. Not
They
like the Scottish
just
horses.
no. The English horses, like, look, they didn't know any better. They were doing what the riders were telling them to do. It's not their fault they were born in England.
Nah, I guess. But
But like, also to the point, like, yeah, you had to take out the horses. Fair play.
yeah.
But also
Fair enough.
horsies.
What a shame. What a shame.
What a shame. The good news is I'm assuming no horses were harmed in the making of this film. If they
Nah, I
were,
don't
I
think
will
so.
boycott this film for the rest of life.
Yeah, I'm sure there'll be a bit of CGI, I think, or
It's
something
yeah,
going on there.
it's either animation or props, and like hyper realistic props. Like, yeah, it's probably what it is. So the Scots also charge, and now the war on foot has begun. And the English also send the infantry, and many shots of the groups running towards the beach. And by many, not the beach. What am I saying? There's no beach. Why did I say beach? Where did I get beach?
No beach in Stirling.
No, there are beaches in Scotland. Don't sell yourself short. They're just rocky.
Not in Stirling, though. There's a river, I think.
I never said in Stirling. I just said in Scotland.
Yeah, there's some, yeah.
Yeah, so, okay, they're running towards each other, and, we see, like, 8 shots of just run, and I'm like, okay, can you crash into each other already? And then, hey, look, we crash into each other. Hamish, Stephen, William, and Hamish's father are doing very well. It's going well. It's hard to describe what's happening, ladies and gentlemen, because all there is on the screen is a lot of blood, a lot of grunting, a lot of sword swinging, and flipping of people.
This scene is brutal. There's it's just quick cuts of limbs coming off and things, and people getting hit on the head with heavy objects, and just splats of, but it's so quickly cut, and there's just, things, and it's
that
just
exactly
hectic, and yeah.
And that being
So
said, very well executed fight scene, both from the fight choreography standing point of view and the editing point of view, as you just pointed out.
Camera's always moving. It's always, even in this, it's always, you can't, it just, all the extras in the back, if it was a still shot, maybe you'd see some of them might, but when it's moving like that, it just looks like a battle, and it's just that everything's just super clever.
So, the Scots with the horses, hey look, they're back! And the commander notices them, but it's too late, and they start to attack the archers. The archers try to start to flee, but they are massacred as well. Turns out this is just a massacre. It's not even a battle. There's no battle. It's just death.
No.
So it's just the English, no longer the English. The English are now a puddle. So the commander calls for a retreat once and runs away like a coward. He doesn't even try to yell loud enough for his poor soldiers who are actually getting slaughtered to get up and try to run away. He just goes, retreat, and then bolts. I hope this commander gets his comeuppance. So Hamish's dad gets knocked down, and he gets his left hand cut off.
Yeah, that is so well done, that shot. I don't know how they did that. It's
an incredible shot.
It's just
a fantastic shot.
It looks so real.
Yeah. But he just screams and then stabs the guy who did it. He's just like, all right, you take my hand, I take your life.
Yeah.
Fair enough. And I'm sad in terms of Hamish's dad got hurt. But he's not dead. So I'm still fine. And I was like, yeah, you can't have every lovely Scottish character that we love in this army come out with no wounds. That's not realistic. Hamish's dad already had a, arrow to the chest. He might as well have no left hand now. I am curious on if the continuity is continuing from the for the next episodes that his left hand isn't there. So we'll see. But yeah, so the Scottish cavalry, uh, is there. They're doing their thing. William sees the commander he negotiated with. Negotiate is a strong word. The commander that he antagonized. And he's on a horse coming straight at him. William takes out the horse again.
Yeah,
Sad, but
poor
understandable why
horse.
you had to do it.
It was
Poor
cool though.
horse. Poor horse. Poor horse. The horse was just following orders.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But it's one clean swoop, and then the guy stands up. One clean swoop, and he is beheaded. Wasn't much of a fight.
No. Nope.
Just,
He
just
said what he said would happen. He said to him at the start, he's like, "We'll let you run. We'll let you go. If you just retreat." And he's like, "Nah, they won't. They won't do anything. You've not won for 200 years." And 10 minutes later, it's just
hey, look, they're dead. So
dude.
the
That's it.
Scottish cavalry comes into the middle, and the massacre's continuing, and the Scots start to pull out a few of their men, trying to get them away from the dead bodies, the ones who are still living, maybe wounded, but like still living, to be like, all right, like let's start separating you because like the battle has died down. William almost takes out one of the Scottish nobles, but before he does, he realizes who it is. He just puts his sword down. He's like, all right, like we're good. Like,
Oh, sorry.
in William's defense, he's in rage and murder mode.
Yeah, battle mode.
And yeah, he's just like battle. And then, he notices the guy and he's like, oh, I did say we'll meet in the middle. Fair play. Okay.
Yeah.
Like,
Gets him.
we like you. So the battle is done. William looks over the field, and the Scottish army cheers in victory with him. The music swells and is triumphant. It is beautiful. William
Horner.
stabs his sword in the ground, and it starts swaying back and forth. It's kind of
Yeah.
funny.
Yeah.
And the sword is swaying back and forth, and that is where we are ending this episode. Because I
Bang.
legitimately haven't seen anything past the battle.
Yes. The end. That's it.
I do not know what happens next. I have some guesses. Like I said, ladies and gentlemen, now that we're halfway through the film, an update on what I think is happening, right? So I know that William Wallace dies at the end. That is a given. I'm not sure how he gets captured, but I know that it's gonna happen because I know a little bit of history. So that part is there, right? I think there is another big battle, and the other big battle might be where he yells freedom, as you alluded to, but maybe he yells that at, like, I don't know, there are 3 more big battles. I legitimately don't know how many big battles there are. But I feel like at one of these big battles, whether it's the next one or a later one, because I don't know how many there are, but one of them doesn't go well for them. And William and his men get defeated, but William is captured instead of killed. And so I think that's when the princess potentially meets William, tries to help him escape maybe, and is sweet on him, tries to help him however she can, but she doesn't necessarily have the power to. Maybe I think before William gets captured, the princess tries to slip him information that she finds out, like through messenger, kind of like as a spy inside, tries to help him that way. I think that is also a possibility of what might happen. But I do think that kind of William's going to get captured at one of these, and he's going to be taken to the king, and then the king is going to kill him in a brutal way to make an example of him. Of this is what will happen if anyone tries this again, kind of deal. I think that's how it's going to end. I think the second half mainly has to deal with the princess and William and them kind of intertwining and their stories intertwining. I'm not really sure how this other guy, what was his name? The famous one, the 17th something.
Robert the Bruce.
Yeah, I'm not sure how he fares into the story, but maybe in one of these battles he comes in with support. I'm not sure. Maybe he, plays the more political side, makes it seem like he's on the English side, maybe for the rest of this film. I would love to maybe potentially see a film that's based on him. I don't know if one exists, but I don't really know how he fits in yet. But I think that it's going to be that he probably plays the political side a bit. And that's what we see with him. Because with William Wallace, we have a lot more of like the carnage and the war and the brutality. But like there are still a lot of politics in play. And I think we might get more of the politics play from Robert the Bruce, which makes me think that, he might want to support Scotland, but he understands that at this moment he has to support the English just to keep face so that the king doesn't suspect him now. And, he can slowly start building up his troops. Maybe that's what's happening. I'm not fully sure. I appreciate that you can't say much. So, yeah. But Ross, thank you so much for joining once again. As
Anytime.
always, this has been an absolute pleasure. I will definitely have you back on this show at some point
Hey,
to talk about some other film. But if people want to find you on the internet doing your things, where can they do that? How can they find you?
You will find me, viewer, on YouTube, and it is just Ross Hendry. That's it. That's the name. And I review games, like PlayStation games and things like that. And I tend to tends to be a video once every 2-3 weeks. There'll be a video. So that's what I like to do in my spare time.
Wonderful. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I will make sure that the link for that YouTube channel is also down in the episode description for this episode, so you can easily find that. Ross, thank you so much for joining once again. It has been an absolute pleasure. We'll definitely have you back on in the future for another show. And listeners, thank you so much for listening. Be sure to join us next week as Brian McClear will be back. He was our guest for the first episode, but due to some scheduling conflicts, Ross has kindly stepped in for episode 2 and 3 of this one, but Brian will be back next week and we will be discussing what happens next. And I legitimately can't give you a preview because I don't know. But until then, I'll catch y'all later. Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for listening to this episode of Post Finale. Post Finale is created, hosted, and produced by me, Ankit Madhira. Our editor is Pranav Nair. The music is by Ankit Madhira and Megan Hutcherson, and the art is by Jarid Rother. If you are all enjoying this episode and want to gain access to more bonus content, you can do so by heading over to patreon.com/coopforge and signing up for any of the tiers. You get loads of different bonus content, such as notes and commentary that we have as we're watching the films, as well as some bonus audio, some bonus videos, and ad-free episodes, early access if we get them done early, and different things like that. All of that can be found at patreon.com/coopforge, and that's patreon.com/co_opforge. If you want to help out the show in a non-monetary way, that's great as well. Tell a friend about the show. Just reach out and be like, hey, you love films, or hey, you need an excuse to watch some more films. Check out the show called Post Finale. The host is an actor, and he's funny and silly, confused most of the time, but they have interesting discussions about some popular films that I think you would really enjoy. It really does help us out a lot. Be sure to talk about us on social media at Post Finale Pod on Instagram and Facebook. And you can also follow us at CoopForge, that's CO_OPFORGE, on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. And there we post content, not just from Post Finale, but also from the other shows hosted here on Co-op Forge, which are Flip the Scripts and Seattle Across the Pond. So a lot of fun things can be found over there on our social media. It really, really does help us out a lot. Thank you to everyone who has already done this. Thank you to everyone who will do this in the future. It really does mean a lot to us, and it helps us create better content for you, the listeners, as we grow. It really does help, and thank you so much for listening to this episode of Post Finale, and I can't wait until next week. And until then, I'll catch y'all later.